Everyone at the jump base has a job to do. The pilot's job, your job, is flight safety. And flight safety begins on the ground. After check-in, your first task is a routine pre-flight. Both Forest Service and BLM Smokejumper aircraft contracts spell out the contractor's maintenance duties. You're normally the first person to notice mechanical problems. See to it that these problems are corrected promptly. Bigger problems usually develop when pilots don't report maintenance needs and try to nurse aircraft along until the next scheduled maintenance check. Report things like landing gear problems, leaking fuel systems, and worn tires immediately. Postponing maintenance leads to breakdowns during the peak of fire activity, compromising swift initial attack and flight safety. It's the pilot's job to ensure the safe, airworthy condition of the aircraft. Fueling procedures vary between BLM and the Forest Service, but in either case, it's your responsibility, not the fueler's, to see that the right type, grade, and amount of fuel gets into the correct tanks. Cases of overfueling or gas caps left off or unsecured won't happen if you oversee the fueling. Proper weight and balance is also your duty. True, standard Smokejumper cargo loads are worked out in advance. The same initial attack load configuration is used over and over. A Smokejumper loadmaster loads the aircraft and ties it down. But in the end, the load's correct weight and balance is your responsibility. When you check weight and balance, remember that the spotter and two jumpers will be positioned aft in the jump door over the fire. In some aircraft, a standard Smokejumper initial attack load and the standard fuel load need to be reduced or downloaded for density altitude on hot days. It's not the loadmaster's responsibility to recognize the need to download. You must ensure that downloading occurs. Besides jumper missions, Smokejumper pilots often fly cargo loads or backhaul loads to or from outlying areas. Unlike standard initial attack loads, these loads are all different. A loadmaster may work a weight and balance, but you need to check it. Backhaul loads are the toughest. Smokejumper pilots fly a lot of backhaul missions bringing used fire gear back to home base. You need to pay close attention to weight and balance with these loads. Equipment going out to a fire comes from the warehouse clearly marked, but backhaul equipment is usually separated from the original marked boxes. There may be extra heavy rolls of wet hose and light bulky items like empty gas cans. Figuring accurate weight and balance can be difficult. A qualified loadmaster may not be present, and there's always pressure to get everything in the airplane. Nobody wants to leave a few rolls of hose or a couple of chainsaws behind. It's your job to control how much backhaul gets put on your airplane and how it is arranged to keep weight and balance within limits. You will also need to learn and apply DOT and agency policy regarding transportation of hazardous materials. For example, proper gas cans are required and chainsaw fuel tanks need to be purged. Cargo restraint is another safety concern. The loadmaster will tie down and restrain the load. Standard initial attack loads will have standard restraint procedures, but restraint of cargo and backhaul loads are all different. Restraining these loads is a matter of experience and judgment. You need to double check how the loadmaster tied down the cargo. Flight manuals generally give cargo restraint guidelines for each aircraft model. Use them. In any case, make sure all cargo items are tied down and restrained in all directions: forward, aft, sideways, and on top. Some aircraft have cargo nets covering a storage compartment. These nets are great, but radios, tools, and other small items lying loose behind one are not restrained. In a crash, they're likely to fly forward through the mesh. I've seen Smokejumper aircraft with all the major boxes and cargo tied down neat and solid as can be, but loose items are all around the airplane. If you have a situation like this, tactfully explain the problem to the loadmaster and work out a solution. Loadmasters in the Forest Service and the BLM do an excellent job, but you're the pilot. You are responsible for flight safety on the ground and in the air. Keep an eye on these things. During pre-flight and loading, watch weight and balance, cargo restraint, and loose items in the aircraft. Mission responsibilities are logically distributed among a variety of personnel in the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service Smokejumper programs. Smokejumpers jump and fight fires. Loadmasters get airplanes loaded, and managers oversee a variety of functions to keep things running smoothly. As a Smokejumper pilot, your responsibility is to fly safely. As you've seen, that job starts on the ground. A fire call demands quick action. Standard procedures help ensure that response is safe and efficient. Start the right side engine first because it's opposite the boarding door. In most situations, the left engine isn't started until all jumpers are aboard and the spotter has secured the door. This way, no one is exposed to a moving propeller. When someone's in a hurry, it's common to ask, "Going to a fire?" In this case, you are going to a fire. Efficiency is important, but don't rush. 40-mile-per-hour taxi speeds are not called for and are unsafe. Use normal taxi speeds. Don't skip anything on the pre-takeoff checklist either. Smooth, safe missions require close teamwork between spotter and pilot. The division of responsibilities between the two for communications, navigation, air traffic control over the fire, dropping smoke jumpers, and for dropping cargo may vary somewhat between the BLM and Forest Service. But the point of these procedures is to accomplish the mission smoothly and safely. The spotter is responsible for the operational aspects of the mission, like coordinating with dispatch, fire size-up, and the jump spot selection. You are responsible for flying the airplane safely. Before takeoff, the spotter makes sure that the jumpers have their helmets and gloves on and are ready to go. The spotter communicates with fire dispatch. As a fireman, the spotter knows the ins and outs of fire operations, fire weather, and the significance of information received from dispatch.
Missoula, Empire 19.
Empire 19, Missoula, go ahead.
Yeah, we're off the ground at 1342. Do you have any additional information for us?
Negative, you've got it all on the request.
Affirmative. Empire 19 clear.
Before takeoff, the spotter will get a jump request form from dispatch. This form will have the fire name, fire size, fuel type, and location. The request form will also list other aircraft responding. In this case, the fire name is Fool Hen Lake, Wise River Ranger District. The fire is 3 acres in Lodgepole Slash, burning hot. An air tanker coordinator, lead 10, and tanker 07 are also responding. Familiarity with fuel types in the fire area, burning conditions, and weather gives the spotter a pretty good idea of what to expect from this fire. He knows that the air tanker coordinator, lead 10, and tanker 07 will be leaving Missoula and that fire communications will be through the Beaverhead supervisor's office. He also knows the appropriate radio frequencies. Navigation would seem to be your job, but it's actually the spotter's. You can be a big help, though, by using the aircraft nav aids and your own navigational skills. Both the BLM and Forest Service provide fire location data that include a VOR radial in latitude and longitude. The Forest Service also provides township and range information, so the spotter can use Forest Service maps that show land ownership boundaries. Most spotters have years of experience navigating in local terrain. They know the major drainages, mountains, and other terrain features in the fire area. The spotter needs this knowledge when several fires are close together in an area where different land ownerships converge. It's important to be able to precisely identify the fire to which jumpers have been dispatched. Loran is a great help in navigating. VOR can help you fly to the general fire area, but Loran could pin down the precise location of the fire. Like so many tasks on a Smokejumper mission, teamwork between pilot and spotter is the key to locating the correct fire. Some new, inexperienced spotters will especially appreciate your help. Don't forget flight safety. Keep track of time and fuel and navigate home or to a refueling base with adequate fuel reserves. 30 minutes reserve is standard for fire missions. Roughly calculating ETAs for the jump ship as well as for the other aircraft en route to the fire is the spotter's next task. These ETAs help him anticipate the air traffic likely around the fire and the order of attack. Will the smoke jumpers drop first, or will the retardant aircraft? He knows the airspeeds of the various aircraft and distances and should be able to make these calculations, but some spotters may need your help to check ETAs. While the spotter is busy with the operational aspects of the mission, you need to be thinking about the special demands of mountain flying. Particularly on missions in the lower 48, mountain flying is the rule, and it requires special knowledge and techniques. Density altitude on a hot summer day can drastically reduce aircraft performance. You need to be aware of those effects and adjust your flying accordingly. Mountains interfere with the steady flow of wind, causing lift and sink to follow logical patterns. The heating of slopes exposed to the sun and steeply sloping ridges with jagged cuts that accelerate wind currents are predictable. You can anticipate them. Winds generally flow upslope from about noon until late in the evening. Then rapid cooling reverses that flow. It's vital to be aware of downdrafts on the lee side of ridges. When flying in the mountains, and especially when selecting a cargo drop pattern, anticipate the effects of terrain on wind velocity, direction, and the likely places to meet updrafts and downdrafts. A severe downdraft on the lee side of a ridge has caused at least one fatal crash during a cargo drop. Here are a few rules of thumb for mountain flying. Always know where you are, the nearest airstrip and the nearest terrain suitable for emergency landing. Expect constantly changing winds. Observe but don't rely totally on smoke drift or cloud shadows for wind direction. Never count on riding an updraft to clear terrain. That updraft may turn into a downdraft. In drainages, fly on one side or the other so you can spot emergency landing sites in the canyon bottom. Allow yourself enough room to make a 180-degree turn for an emergency exit. Always be aware of the topography ahead and maintain proper position and enough altitude to turn around. The canyon grade may climb faster than you can. Never fly up a narrow canyon or drainage where you can't make a safe 180-degree turn in case of a severe downdraft or engine failure. Cross ridges at an angle so that you can turn away if you hit a downdraft. Use caution when operating near rain squalls and low stratus clouds. Never enter clouds while flying at low altitude in the mountains. Insist on visibility as well as ceiling. Rain or smoke from fires can reduce visibility ahead to zero. Late evening darkness often blends in perfectly with the color of the mountains, which may appear to be just another dark section of the sky. Remember, spotting landmarks may be difficult. A 9,000-foot mountain on the charts may look like a small knoll if surrounding terrain is 4,000 to 5,000 feet high. Always be on the lookout for wires and cables across canyons. These are just a few of many factors you must consider when flying in the mountains. There's another situation you need to be prepared to deal with, an emergency bailout of the jumpers. In the event of an engine failure, a fire, or other critical emergency, the jumpers may have to bail out. You are in charge of the aircraft and responsible for initiating an emergency exit. The spotter will take charge of the jumpers at the onset of an emergency.
Stay where you're at.
This keeps the jumpers from crowding aft to the jump door, which would cause a serious aft CG problem.
Get the jumpers out.
The spotter works to clear the aircraft of jumpers quickly without creating an aft CG problem. Emergency exits are impossible below 500 feet. Parachutes require that much altitude to open. You must work quickly, though. A few years ago, by the time a pilot turned to give the bailout command, he was looking at an empty ship. Use good judgment. Some aircraft problems, such as a landing gear lockup, are not critical emergencies. They may require that the jumpers make a precautionary exit, but these jumps can follow normal procedures. A jump spot can be selected and streamers dropped. Remember, jumping is a routine procedure for these people. A belly landing isn't.
Missoula, Empire 19.
Empire 19, Missoula, go ahead.
Position report. Yeah, we're 10 miles west of Anaconda, and we'll flight follow with Beaverhead Dispatch from here on.
Understand 10 west to Anaconda. Missoula, clear.
Position reports are normal procedure in all smoke jumping operations. They enhance flight safety and keep dispatch informed on mission progress. Dispatch provides flight following for all fire mission aircraft. Making position reports is the spotter's responsibility. Remind him if necessary.